these thoughts start to go. And this is where hypnosis is really helpful, because not just the capacity to relax, which is what we teach people, one of the things, but the capacity to get right to the cause of these things and say, what's this fixed idea that's saying to me that if I'm not immediately accessible to everybody all the time, the world's not going to want me anymore?
Right.
Right. What's behind that?
Right.
So in other words, where is this idea held? This idea is held in the subconscious mind.
Well, in my case, it was held in my boss. so anyways, but that's right. You're exactly right. And I want to just make a point about that too. The funny part is me taking that hardline stance on it.
Yes.
Created more stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I knew that at the time, and I did not have these techniques,
Right.
right? But still, I refused to give in to that because, you know, I just said, well, you're never going to get away from it if you don't accept some stress now. So it was before I would leave, and, you know, that's the way it was. But that's right. They're held in the subconscious. So talk more about that.
Yes. So, I mean, so we have these ideas. These are the governing ideas that affect our lives. And these governing ideas are usually things that we've established very, very, very early on in our
Right.
lives. As we've spoken about on the show, things that normally come from childhood. I need to be a certain way, because if I'm not this way, then it produces stress in my life. So, for example, an authority figure, a mother or father, calls
Perfect.
you to attention,
Right.
and you might be busy playing with your toys, and it's like, well, I don't want to do that, and then you get in trouble. Something happens to you, and you quickly learn as a child, oh, well, you know, when mum or dad calls, I better show up. And now that gets transferred to the boss. You know, when they call, I better show up, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble.
Right.
Even though you might rationally and perfectly say, hey, this is vacation time, you know, if you can live without me for 2 weeks or whatever it might be, and the world carries on. And you know that rationally, but there's a thing inside you. This is what we call a program. And the program is secured in your subconscious, held there by the mortar of emotion. You can think of the program as like a building, and the mortar is holding the bricks together is the emotion that causes the stress, that says, oh, if I don't respond straight away, terrible things are going to happen, I'm going to get in trouble. And this is what produces stress, and this is the unique capacity of the methodologies and the technologies that we teach to get to those things.
That's really important. That is a very important thing. And with that, you know, we always talk about direct suggestion versus regression,
Right.
healing hypnosis by regression to cause.
Right.
And if it's just garden variety stress, you can use a direct suggestion
Yes.
technique. Very successful.
Absolutely.
If it's one of those, like you said, deeply held beliefs, and it's really powerful, then you really have to get to those things. And it'll sound crazy to the viewers, right? But you can actually even have deeply held beliefs down inside that, you know, if I don't please this authority figure, he'll kill me.
Yes.
He or she will kill me.
Yes.
Now, that sounds crazy, but when you're a really small child, that's what it can feel like to you.
Right.
And that's the program you can incorporate.
Right.
And you can't just think that away.
Right.
And the problem is, too, that may be before you have any memories of anything. It
Absolutely.
could be 12 months old.
Absolutely.
Sounds crazy. You don't have the language skills, but you have the feelings all the time, and you're recording everything.
Absolutely, and it comes back to the basic thing that we said on this show, if you watched other episodes of it, which is that the language of the subconscious mind is feeling, emotion and sensation.
Right.
And those feelings, emotions and sensations is what is underneath and generates those thoughts and those conceptions and perceptions. And they colour our view of the whole world and our place in it and form part of our self-definitions. So when you learn these tools and incorporate them in your life, you have the capacity to get to those things.
Right.
And what that means for you is that you're able to handle stresses of all manner at a much, much, much deeper level.
Right.
And so it appears that you're not. And if I don't mind, I hope you'll indulge me out there. You know, there have been a period of time in my recent past, which Bill's observed, when
Yes.
I think it's fair to say there were fairly high stresses in life.
Very high.
And yet, I was able to function. And you said at times, I don't know how you can continue on with these sorts of things. Right?
Yes, with that level of stress, I
Right.
would have been on the floor. I think
Right.
it felt
And
like, you know, it was
why?
very bad. Yeah.
Not because there's anything superhuman about
No.
me, not at all. It's simply the use of tools, right? And of course, did I want to have those stresses? No. Did I want to manage them and eliminate them, the negative ones, as far as I could? Of course. But sometimes life presents us with situations where we just don't have those types of choices.
Right.
And so that's when the use of these types of very, very powerful tools is really a lifesaver. And I can honestly say, I mean, I think that I would have, given those stresses, become ill if I had not had the use of these tools, which I used a lot to ensure that.
Well, that and you know, it may sound crazy to some people, but that's really true. You could easily become ill, even with milder illnesses, because you're going to lower your ability to fight off infections.
That's true.
And things like this. Your immune system's not going to be functioning as right, simply because of the stress itself. You're putting all these chemicals into your system. I mean, adrenaline, okay, can be a great thing when you're trying to, flee something, right? But when you're pumping it in, more chronically, it's a very, very bad thing.
Right.
And all, and I'll share a very personal story.
Sure.
Is that my father died because of this. Someone had stolen a bicycle, and he chased them. And he caught this, he was 64, and he caught this young man that stole the bike, but he stressed
he chased him on another bicycle.
On another bicycle. He saw him take it and take off from the back porch. He jumped on another one. He chased him, a mile or a couple miles. The kid finally jumped off the bike and left it. And my father comes home, and his head is purple from all the anger and all the chemicals and all this stuff.
And the stress of the chase itself.
And the stress of the chase, getting his heart rate up. And he never did strong cardiovascular exercise like I do.
Right.
Always mild. Now you're 64 and you do this. And he sat down and he took off his shoes. He said, "Good thing I had my shoes on," and he hit the floor. And he was dead. Okay. And that's what excessive stress can do for you. And that's from a lot of those chemicals that he poured so much adrenaline in. He got his heart rate high and all this. And so, but it can also do it more chronically if you let it go on.
Right.
Right.
So
So I guess one of the questions I have for you, for the audience, is someone comes in and they say, "Geez, I've got a bad, stressful life and this and that." Of course, you're going to ask them, "Well, what is stressful? What's causing it and this and that?" How are you determining whether a direct suggestion method is going to really work, or whether this is really a regression issue? Can you tell before you even do it?
Well, this is a very good question, and it demands a considered and serious answer. So thanks for springing that one on me, Bill.
Sure.
Stress
out of the blue, yeah.
Well, no. So the fact of the matter is that when we bring people in, at least in our processes, we're normally going to introduce them to, a hypnotic state. And that we're going to be incorporating direct suggestion. They're going to find that useful. Before we even do that, we're going to be talking to them and finding out how long they've been experiencing this type of stress and how long they've been subject to it. There are certain types of stresses that occur which we can quite quickly see are likely to be connected to stressful events earlier in their life. One of my standard questions anyway is to say to people, have you experienced any stresses in the past year or 2 years, including things such as a divorce, the loss of a close friend or relative, an illness, an unexpected loss of a job. I mean, even those things, I want to get something clear. Sometimes, though, some people will come to us and it's very, very clear that something earlier has happened. When I say earlier, I mean earlier in their life, much earlier, an abusive parent, a tragic or life-changing situation.
So you say it's very apparent. Is it apparent because they consciously know about it, or is it apparent because you're noticing that emotional responses seem much stronger than they should be?
That's a very, very good point. It's actually both. Sometimes people are aware of it. They're not aware of the extent or the ramifications that it has.
Right.
And sometimes it's one of the key elements of stress we all know in our lives is an over response, an overreaction to things which should be like mild stressors. Somebody cuts you off on the road, let's say, and you might go, it annoys you. But if you fly into an enormous rage, it indicates that there's something underneath it. So one of the things that we look for when we question people on is a response which is out of proportion to the stimulus.
So that's a very important way of saying it, because I use the word should, and that's not a really good choice. That it shouldn't be as high as it is. it's not a right or wrong or this or that. Is it simply, does it seem out of proportion? Does the person's reactions seem out of proportion to the actual current event that's happening?
Right. And again, this is not that if we don't, for example, if somebody does something that attacks us, let's say as an example, and we don't experience some degree of anger, which can be experienced in many forms, that's usually a problem in and of itself. I don't mean that we need to be angry. I just mean that we need to allow ourselves to have responses appropriate to what life is presenting to us. But when somebody does something that's perhaps mildly irritating and we find ourselves flying into an uncontrollable rage, that indicates that there's underlying problems.
Right.
And that normally is not, it's going to be relieved somewhat by our stress reduction techniques,
the direct suggestion
yes,
ones, right.
But it's also going to indicate that there's probably something we should look at that's a little bit further back and deeper down.
Right.
A seed has been set that produces a response that becomes compounded over time that manifests in this overreaction.
Right.
And so it's an indication. Now, saying all of that, one of our basic tenets of what we do is that we do not know precisely why A leads to B. We let the subconscious mind reveal that.
Right.
We don't come in with a prescription or say, well, if you're feeling that, it's because it must be because of this. This leads to that. We say the subconscious mind is subtle and diverse and deep. And our job isn't to try and tell it, it's to let the subconscious mind in hypnosis reveal what the cause of problems is.
Right, right.
And so that differentiates what we do as hypnosis practitioners using healing hypnosis by regression to cause from these prescriptive methods of stop doing that, don't do this, and reduce that, and eliminate that. We're not saying that. We're saying, okay, there's a reason why this thing stresses you.
Right.
But not you.
Right.
Right? And it's a bit more subtle.
Something behind it. The other thing too is if you think it's just direct suggestion and you use it and they start using it and the condition gets worse.
Then that's an indication that there's an underlying problem.
Right.
Because as Bill said right from the beginning, and the most important thing is that stress is a protective mechanism.
Right.
Many of these manifestations of the subconscious mind, the primary goal of the subconscious mind is to protect us.
Right.
And if we try and change something that the subconscious mind believes is protecting us, protecting our very existence, then it will rebel against that.
And
it won't let that happen.
Tell the story about the smoker that wanted direct suggestion from you, did not want regression, and you said, I would never, my gut said no. Go ahead, tell that story.
So this is a story, I'm sorry folks, with great shame to me, but I will confess on the air.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
So we have, we've talked about our smoking cessation programs before, and there's an element to our smoking cessation programs which does have a regressive element. It's not quite the same and as powerful as some of the other things we do in regression because it doesn't need to be for most purposes. But in this particular individual, after a consultation with him and doing one session of hypnosis, it became very, very apparent to me that there were some very deep-seated causes connected with stress relief and emotions and smoking.
Right.
And I said to him, if I'm going to be effective with you, you really have to do regression. And he didn't want to do it for two reasons. He was a little bit scared of it, I think.
Yeah.
But I think he didn't want to spend the money.
Yeah, well, yeah, I understand that, yeah.
And I can understand. But okay. And what I should have done, and this is where I feel ashamed, is I should have planted my feet and said, look, this isn't going to be effective for you unless we do that.
Right.
But he was extremely insistent, and I caved in, and we did follow up direct suggestion sessions. And after the second session, he went from smoking initially, what was it? I think he was smoking a pack a day, went to 2 packs a day.
Yeah, right.
Because it ran right into that protection program which said, if you don't smoke, that's the only way left in your life to reduce all these stressors. And if this bozo, meaning me, is trying to stop you from doing that, I, the subconscious mind, is going to tell you who's boss.
I'll show you.
And there he goes. And that was a perfect illustration of the fact that when direct suggestion runs up across a self-protecting program lodged in the subconscious mind as it's conceived, it will literally rebel against it and turn it around the other way.
Right.
To my embarrassment and shame, I really couldn't persuade that individual to do regression. He just took the view that hypnosis doesn't work for him, and that's not true. Right. It's just we needed to use a different tool,
a different technique
to get it done.
Yeah.
So yep. Again, when you're looking for a hypnosis practitioner, to deal with a problem, beware of anybody tells you that this is always the answer to that. Very often it is, but sometimes it's not.
Right.
And part of what you're looking for in a hypnosis practitioner is somebody who's willing to say, look, I could do this, but I don't think that's going to work for you.
Right.
And to the end of my confession, almost to my shame,
Yeah.
I didn't stress that enough to this individual.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the thing is, it was a learning experience for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it really boils down to. I mean, I had a similar thing where I had a client that it was sleep problem.
Yes.
And, I did the interview and I used our standard sleep program.
Right.
And when I did the interview, she didn't quite reveal some anxieties and thoughts that she was having when she went to sleep.
Right.
And so it sounded like just a busy mind situation. Right. And our standard program works beautifully. Direct suggestion, a session, good, Right. Well.
And the technique that people learn.
Right, exactly, and that's what we're doing. We're putting a sleep program in them, showing them how to use it, and so forth. She calls me up, and certain things started changing. She changed one of the words in it, and then it wasn't working, and it was worse. And as I start talking to her about that, I thought it was very strange. Well, then she started revealing some of the thoughts, these really anxiety-producing thoughts that she was having before sleep, and that she hadn't told me before, and so I figured out, okay, there's a deep-seated issue, and so the standard one won't work, and so I immediately said, well, just stop using the process, and she went back to what she was, same difficulty she was. It wasn't more difficult anymore. Right. And I explained to her, I said, we really need to do regression for this. And she...
To get to the root... In fact, when we say we need to do the regression, what Bill's also saying, I mean, just so you understand, we need it because we need to... it's the tool that we use to get to the root cause of the problem.
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
Right.
There's a problem, and we're looking to get to the cause. That's why it's called healing hypnosis by regression to cause.
Right.
That's what you need.
Right. Exactly. So, but in that case, she didn't. She heard me and she didn't want to do it. And so okay. So there was no harm in the end. It's just she was left with the same problem.
Right.
But there is a solution, and so forth. So that's really one of the ways also we can tell. I mean, it's because there's ones that come in and either, like in that case, they don't reveal certain things to you, so you can't tell that it's something that it needs regression, or you go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's this reminds me of something, and I want to bring up here. The idea is not that you become dependent on us, hypnosis practitioners, to relieve your stress. The idea is that using hypnosis as a tool, we show you how to use that tool so that you can relieve your own stress.
Right.
All of these programs are not based upon you coming to us. We love to see you, and we're happy to, and certainly we can bring you into conditions of deep hypnosis which are deeply relaxing, and we have all sorts of programs like that. But the basic idea underneath this is to show you how to use these tools, because we believe that the capacity to enter deep hypnotic trance in the way that we're describing and talking about is a gift of nature. It's a gift that all of us have because simply we're human beings. It's not about belief, it's not about religion, it's about something that's built into us, just like it's built into us that our blood flows and our organs work, as we're healthy. It's a tool that we want to show you how to use to benefit your own life. So again, for any hypnosis practitioner you approach, you want to get to the point, we believe, where in a sense you're becoming less dependent on that presence of that practitioner. Right. Which is a very good practice and a horrible business model.
Yeah.
Because it means we work with a number of people. The idea is not that you keep coming to us again and again and again and again to relieve your stress. The idea is that you learn how to use your mind and access the deeper parts of your mind to help yourself.
Yeah, that's very important, because if you find yourself in a situation where you're going back over and over and over, you shouldn't have to do that with direct suggestion.
Right. They
should teach you how to use it, install a direct suggestion program, teach you how to use it, and that should be it.
And actually, Bill, you mentioned a great point, because that's another point about direct suggestion. If we've seen hypnotic programs where people have come for I mean, I actually read about a program where somebody came for 26 sessions. I don't think I've ever done 26 sessions with anybody.
Yeah, I've heard somebody hypnotists actually admit they did.
Yeah.
That.
In other words, what they're doing is direct suggestion again and again and again and again. And the basic idea behind that is if it's not working, you just have to do a lot. And we have a different idea, which if it's not working, it means you need to do something else. Right? It's something. What that's telling us is that direct suggestion is not being accepted by the subconscious mind, and therefore we look for a deeper set of processes. Once the underlying protective mechanism that has been misplaced, that is causing that block, is alleviated, then the direct suggestion becomes effective and useful. But if it's running into a barrier, we need to address that. So once again, if you approach a practitioner and the basic message is, if this doesn't work, we just need to give you more and more and more and more. Well, there's a certain process where you need to follow it, but just doing more of the same thing when it's running into a problem is really not being responsive to the feedback that you're getting from the system.
Right.
And we want to be responsive to that.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, so the difference being is if it's amenable to direct suggestion, you might do a session or two and with us and you're set. We teach you then give you a program to do it and teach you how to do it. If we figure out it's a regression issue, well, yes, you will have to do several sessions to get back to the original cause and relieve it. Then we give you the direct suggestion techniques for stress reduction, just for normal stress in your life, and send you on your way. And we're always there to support you. But the fact is, so that might take a little bit more sessions, but it's not endless sessions. Right.
And let's talk about an extreme of stress, the thing called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder syndrome symptom, an extreme form of stress. Now, some practitioners will disagree with what I'm about to say, and others, but personally, I've never found or observed a true PTSD that's amenable purely to direct suggestion hypnosis.
Right.
Can it relieve some of the symptoms? Yes, it can. Is it helpful? Yes, it can be. Will it get to the root cause? Probably not, right? That's something where somebody comes to Bill for PTSD and they have a diagnosis and they ask me, how would you handle that? I'm always going to say to them, almost invariably, you're going to need some form of healing hypnosis by regression to cause, which is a process. And if that's something that you don't want to do for whatever reason, then I don't have an effective way of helping you. So again, it's very important that your hypnosis practitioner is honest with you, is direct with you, and says, look, we can do this or we can't do this, but if we do this, this is the process that we need to follow.
Right.
And I don't like saying to anybody, well, we'll just try something, and if it works, it doesn't work, and let people know what is in the range of possibility.
Right.
And that's what you should be looking for from a hypnosis practitioner.
Right. I mean, when we do the same thing with our smoking program.
Sure.
Is we do a test to see if they're really truly ready to do this. And I was recently talking to a potential client. And I said, if you don't pass the test, then I tell you don't waste your money.
Right.
He was stunned that I would just turn away a good sum of money. I said, well, it's not going to work for you.
Work, right.
So anyways, let's just talk briefly about some of the direct suggestion methods.
Right.
Because we've only got a few minutes left here, and I know Jerry Kine in one of his videos talked about flushing out the negativity through use of a gray room
which doesn't mean much. What it means basically is it's a specific technique which we use in hypnosis, which enables you to experience a sort of a cleansing, almost like a flushing energy coming through and out of you, which is something that if we were to just tell you about it in a way that you'd go, that sounds ridiculous.
That doesn't do anything, right? Yeah.
In the hypnotic state, it can have a deeply profound effect.
Right, and that's a really important thing is that you really need to have somebody in a deep hypnotic state for the direct suggestion to
be
work.
Effective. Yes.
And he talked about stress reduction pattern, pattern we call it.
Yes.
And it's just certain phrases and words that we tell the subconscious to realign its thinking, and in this case, to flush out the negativity and so forth. But you could tell yourself that stuff in a conscious state,
and it won't have any effect.
And it's not going to have an effect.
So again,
it's very minimal.
This is predicated, folks, on the ability to enter into and get the hypnotic state of trance, entering into that. What we can then do is when we enter suggestion, What that's really doing is it's giving instructions to the subconscious mind that the subconscious mind can carry out. Where in the past it was producing chemicals and responses and all the other things that create stress, now it's doing it to alleviate that negative stress. So it's a blueprint, it's an instruction for the subconscious mind.
Right, and you know, I looked at one of Jerry's nice programs, and it really was chock full of different things. And you know, one of the things is that he had you realign your thinking, because sometimes stress is just simply how you think about something.
Absolutely.
And he was talking about, you know, looking at failure just as the learning experiences.
Yeah, result.
And so you look, but telling the conscious mind that won't do it much good.
Right.
Telling the subconscious that is that you'll look back at what he was talking about a business that failed. Look back at that, and now what have you learned? You've learned so many things from that, and that in the future, that's the attitude you'll take.
Right.
It's no longer a failure; it's a learning, and it helps you improve and be more successful in the future.
Right.
So, but it has to be in a deep hypnotic state, or else it's not going to really.
It's not going to work. And again, this is the thing. What we do is not the same as purely positive mental attitude. It is not the same as creative visualization. It's not just a question of picturing a way of stress-free, and it's using the power of your subconscious mind to reach things at a very, very deep level. And there's a process for this.
Right.
It's not an accident, and it's not just about feeling good. It's not even about just relaxing.
Right.
It's about a combination of these processes used in an intelligent fashion and specifically tailored to you.
Right.
Right.
And the thing about it is he'd remove the negative, you know, thoughts that you had, but then he'd also give you a new way of looking at it. But then he'd also give you a specific process. He'd program in that, okay, you hit a stressful event, and if you do this and say these phrases, you'll feel an immediate deep relaxation. But that's because he's done it in a hypnotic state.
Yes.
Right.
And so, you know, this is all predicated on the fact, all of these methods and techniques which we show to our clients, and which if you do, you know, a stress reduction, a stress management program, you learn how to do. You learn the background, you learn the theory, the basis, and you are given the practical tools. And for a stress reduction program, I'm suggesting you should look for somebody that can bring you into a deep hypnotic state, and you should look for somebody that can give you those tools which you can use every day of your life whenever you want to.
Right.
So, thank you once again for watching this edition of Hypnosis Helps. We hope that that's been useful information to you and help you determine whether you want to approach us or another hypnosis practitioners to use these tools and to select what they are and dismiss some of the common myths. And we're wishing you a balanced life as far as stress is concerned, balancing positive, negative. And until the next edition of Hypnosis Helps, this is me, Neil Myers, saying thank you, goodbye, and my colleague Bill Miller.
Yep.